Hello students, welcome back to the Analyst for 28th January 2025, where we will be discussing 7 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. As usual, in the very first section of the analysis part, we will be firstly going on to discuss the recent re-election of Donald Trump and the implications on the same on India and US relationships. Further, we are also going into deeper analysis of the evolution of the US power and the deeper aspect of India and US relations in contemporary times. In the next article, we will be looking into the various imperatives of our country in an effort to boost our resources in the health sector we need to take to have a better digital health sector. In the next section of the simplified articles, we will be further discussing 5 more articles which are extremely important for the upcoming Prelims 2025 examination. So stay tuned. Hello students, I hope you all are doing well, and as we know, today is the day when the US President will be assuming office, and it is Donald Trump who is coming back. And here, it is highly imperative for us, for UPSC aspirants and also for the general public to be aware of how US power evolved over a period of time. In this article, we are going to delve into that. Also, we are going to understand the various aspects of India and US relations and what are the recent 5 most important areas we have to watch out for Donald Trump's presidency. And here, we have to understand the importance of this topic from prelims perspective, because there have been questions, MCQs with reference to various US-Indian initiatives. And also when we talk about mains in GS2, we have to talk about and also understand various bilateral relations India is having with various nations and which affect directly India's interest. Now, we are going to briefly cover how we understand US is the world's most powerful democracy. We are going to start with Washington's farewell address in 1796, when he, at the time of leaving the office of US presidency, he commented that the US would not involve in global affairs in directly intermediating or in transgressing any national sovereignty of the world. And this is a very significant aspect because we understand the US had gotten freedom from the British, right? And this is why, the presidency and also the political consensus at that time had actually, advocated for non-interference. But we have to understand over a period of time, due to the various aggressive aspects of, or say, the policies of British with reference to colonialism, and particularly in Latin America, the US came up with Monroe Doctrine. It was released by its own president back then in 1820s, where in the Monroe Doctrine, the US focused on isolating the Western Hemisphere from the rest of the world, because recently the Western Hemisphere and so the so-called Latin American nations gained independence in 1800s, in 1820s. So that is why the US tried to assert itself that any types of colonialism will not be permitted in the entire Western Hemisphere, that is the North and South Americas. Well, it is a very good aspect because it's actually sent a very strong message to the European continent, which was flourishing under its own imperialism. So that is where we have to understand gradually from 1898 to 1945, this is actually the time when we see the emergence of US in the global world power arena. So what happened during this time? For the very first time, US actually acquired some, external territories, that is Philippines, Guam and Puerto Rico, via the outcome of the Spanish-American War. And this is actually considered the cornerstone of how America, or say the US, the country, will be spreading its tentacles abroad. Also, we have understood that during the same time, we witnessed the 2 global wars, and the most devastating impact of the war was seen how the US was involved in the same. After the World War I, where US intervened quite later, right? US proposed the League of Nations. Later on, it would become the United Nations, right? We understood that the US recommended or set up this, or say, forwarded the idea of League of Nations while itself not joining it that at that point of time. And also we have understood after the World War I, we understood that the US economy grew at a very fast pace due to the fast strides or the fast advancements that the US was taking in the technological arena, due to which we also have seen the insane amount of economic growth the US witnessed in the 1920s decade, after which we also saw the Great Depression. But it did not deter the US ambitions, because in the World War II, the US became the arsenal of democracy. We can actually understand why, because we understood due to the economic military power of the US, the allies were able to cope up in the, say, World War II. And that is where, we understand the second phase of the US power will be progressing to. That is in the Cold War era, that is from 1945 to 1991. After which we understand, after the conclusion of the World War II, the US and the Soviet Union became the two big poles of the entire world. The poles by which we mean that at one side we had the US and its various like-minded nations, mainly the European nations. On the other side, we have the Soviet Union and its own like-minded nations. So this is where we find the first aspect of ideological fight. That is, on one side we have communism, on the other side we have liberal democracy as advocated by the US back then. So this gave birth to the multipolar world, and also with that we have had NATO, we have had various US interventions in various countries such as Korea, Vietnam, where we had many wars, right, and also Afghanistan. So this was mainly to promote the US ideas in these nations and also to counter the Soviet ideals, due to which we have this Cold War. So we all know this. We are just going to, try to revise all of this. Also, we have understood just after the World War II, in 1948, the US came up with the Marshall Plan, which was a plan to actually revitalize the European economies that faced the brunt of the World War II. We know that the World War II depleted the European countries' resources, mainly Britain. And we have these various ideas where the US, to establish its power, it tried to extend long period loans to the European nations. And this is where you understand that is aimed firstly at the European recovery, secondly to establish the US, say, hand in the entire, say, European continent. After which we also saw the growing prominence of various institutions worldwide. That is United Nations, that is the various world organizations which was actually led by the US back then. And within the same, we also have understood the dropping of the atom bombs in 1945 established the military prowess of the US. After the same, also in 1969, when we understand the moon landing took place, right? So these two things, firstly military, then technologically, say, advancements of the US establish its as a major global power. And how do we actually agree that this is a multipolar world during this period of time? Because these were the things that US was doing at its end. The Soviet Union back then was also allying with various say countries such as Cuba, and also participating in various wars such as even the India-Pakistan war that resulted in the, say, liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. So it was not only the US which was doing all of these things. On the other hand, the Soviet Union was actively engaging in all those things, especially in the, say, military aspect and technological aspect and various other aspects. But after the collapse of the Soviet Union, right, in 1991, US became the sole power. US actually set the foundation of the unipolar world from around, say, 1991 to 2001, that is around a period of 10 years. So during this time, we see US establish its hegemony. That is the political, military, and the various economic assertion of the US. So it promoted liberal democracy, and with it, it also tried to promote the same via various multilateral organizations. Further, the US took help of the United Nations, the WTO, which was formed by now, and the various other aspects, right? So within the same, we also saw the intervention of US in internal issues of Iraq, Yugoslavia, and Somalia, which supposedly actually divided the US, say, criticism over a long period of time. Even now, the US faces criticism for the various interventions it did. And also the various earlier interventions which resulted in much serious wars such as Korean War, Vietnam War, the US did not stop even now, right? It also tried to promote market economies and also globalization, mainly by, say, the various multinational companies all over the world was proposed proposed and also furthered by the US. But after 2001, we see various challenges to this US hegemony. Firstly, the various rising incidents of terrorism that actually focused the US agenda on military aspect to focus more on counter-terrorism, where again US have had various interventions in Iraq, Afghanistan, and also was at the butt of various international criticism, because whenever US is going to intervene in various countries with reference to their unilateral decisions, it is trying to undermine the sovereignty of the nations. So this is how we understand the first challenge was the 9/11 era. Second, the rise of China. As we can understand, this was a time, right, in the 1945 to 50s when the, UK hegemony, that is the British power, right, was on the decline. And this is when the US rose over a period of time. Well, there have been various ups and downs, right? But prominently after 2001, we see a gradual decline of the US hegemony due to various reasons. And one of the most important reason is the rise of China. We see that there is a rise of a new hegemony. While there was a fall of the UK, there was a rise of the US, rise and fall, because we have also the presence of the USSR during the same time. So due to which in this particular multipolar world, the US faced many challenges. But again, US recovered, it became the unipolar, decision maker, but not until the rise of China. China, with its various economic prowess, with its various amounts of, economic decisions, military decisions, it rose over a period of time from 2001s. Be it manufacturing sector, be it the strength of their agricultural sector, be it the strength of their exports, be it the economic decisions such as rapid devaluation, dumping, and various other aspects such as dominance over the Indo-Pacific Ocean. So be it whatever it is, China is on the rise right now, and that is the biggest threat to US hegemony. Also over a period of time, Russia, after the collapse in 1991, it resurfaced and also have had various, economic progress over a period of time, right? And also the other regional players such as Brazil, such as India, such as various other developing nations, they are also giving stiff competition to the US power. Also the various economic challenges, particularly after the 2008 global financial crisis, economic strength of the US came down. And also we understand over a period of time, over decades, we have seen US innovation, US startups, US firms dominating the entire, ecosystem of the entire world. But still we see the US reeling under various economic challenges, mainly inflationary pressures after the COVID. But despite the challenges, still now we see technology, military, with reference to various alliances such as the various alliances as Quad, AUKUS, right, and the soft power dynamics via their own movies and their various amounts of American culture. So we find that the US hegemony is still there, but yes, there is a decline. After this, we have to focus on our own India and US relations. That is, from the early Cold War period from 1947 to 1991, the relations between India and the US was a little bit of frosty. Why? Because India advocated this non-alignment policy, which the US was not very, accepting, right? Because we understand the US wanted various countries to align with their own interests. So also in 1971, as we discussed just now, India sided with the USSR, that is the Soviet Union, in this 1971 Bangladesh Liberation War. Due to, in the same, we understand that the US actually was not in support of India, where it actually allied with Pakistan. Also, in 1974, US became very angry on India for testing nuclear capabilities. Well, it is actually a double characteristic of the US that we see over and over a period of time. But we understand that in the second phase also, when India did this Pokhran test 2, right, in 1998, US was again not happy. So this is, we understand, in the post-Cold War era, when relations between the US and India are starting to warm up, or become a little bit friendlier over a period of time, because the end of the Cold War gave India an opportunity to side with the US interest right now. Because be it the globalization, be it the 1991 financial crisis, be it the various aspects, US started gradually helping India or assisting India in various aspects, particularly when India liberalized various FDI norms. We have had the influx of so many MNCs in the country. So it was actually a win-win scenario for both of the countries. And the most successful phase of US-India relationships started from 2000 onwards with the visit of then President Bill Clinton to India. But the most significant achievement between the two countries was seen in 2005 when India and US civil nuclear agreement was signed. This was actually an opportunity to correct these two historical wrongs done by the US when US objected to India's participation in the nuclear capability aspect. So here, outside the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, India was given a special seat, a special permission to set up various civil nuclear deals. And also, with reference to 2611, the infamous incident which took place in the country, counterterrorism capabilities between the two countries became much more strengthened. Be it the Malabar exercise, the Youth Abhyas, US and Indian defense agreements, defense cooperation grew over a period of time. In the comment section, you let me know which part of our Indian armed forces participate in these two exercises. Also, the biggest amount of achievements took place in the last 10 years, that is 2014 to present times, when our Prime Minister Narendra Modi came to power. And let me tell you, he dealt with three administrations, with the Obama administration, Trump administration and the Biden administration. The Indian Prime Minister have had cordial relationships with them all. Also, during the same time in 2016, India became a major defense partner of the US, because we understand that over a period of time from 2008, from around 2022 even till now, we have so many defense equipment purchases from the US. Apart from the same, from 2009 with the signing of the Counter-Terrorism Cooperation Initiative to around say 2015 when we have the joint strategic vision for Asia Pacific and Indian Ocean region, the framework for India defense relationship, and the most important agreements, they are the Logistic Exchange Memorandum of Agreement, framework for the US-India cyber relationship, communications compatibility and securities agreement, industrial security annex, basic exchange and cooperation agreement. So these are all the major agreements and mechanisms which India and US are having, that is making India a major defense partner of the US, and this is a very significant thing. Also, India and US shares the same philosophy on the India-Pacific strategy, where China is becoming very aggressive, and due to which we have various alliances such as the 2+2 ministerial dialogues, we have AUKUS, we have Quad, we have so many aspects in which India is directly and indirectly involved. Also, within the same, we have various technological aspects, the trade relations with the country, right, which is over a period of time strengthening the pillars between the two nations. Mainly when we talk about the pillars of India and US relationships, we have generally the political and strategic cooperation, where we have the Indo-Pacific and Quad aspect, for which we actually understand due to the rise of China, US is also threatened because its hegemony is reducing over a period of time. On the other side, India is an aspiring country. It wants to become a developed country by 2047, and China is the biggest impediment. So that is why political and strategic ways, both of the countries are aligned. Also, the events that we have seen with reference to counterterrorism, defense partnerships, the three of these things are very strong between the nations. Also, when we talk about the economic and trade relations, firstly, when we talk about the US investment in the country, they are huge. Also, when we talk about the US-India trade relationships, with reference to various exports and say imports between the two nations, they are actually quite huge. When we talk about the Trump tenure, the say trade surplus was actually lower than when we compare with the same with Biden administration. But over a period of time, we see that we have a surplus with the US. Next, when we talk about the technology and innovation space, we see the various collaborations between the NASA and the ISRO, specifically recently in the NISAR. You let me know in the comments what is this all about. So apart from this, we have so many other collaborations too. This is strengthening the sectors. Also, when it comes to the funding of clean energy in the country, be it the aspect of green mechanisms, so both of the countries are growing together. When we talk about the digital economy and the dominance of the US e-commerce social media platforms, they are also quite progressive. Also, the same is seen on the fronts of cyber security. When we talk about the cultural and economic, educational ties, the Indian diaspora is 4.5 million, say, strong in the country, where we understand that they make up around 1.5% of the US population. Right now, we see so many Indian films which are, even releasing in the country, right, of the US. Also, when we talk about the contribution to the US economy by our own, say, Indians, they contribute to around 300 billion to US tax collections. So we can understand the importance of the Indian community in the US. Now, with the Trump 2.0, what is this all about? Where we have discussed so many things about US power, the India-US historical relationships. How are all these things coming together in the Trump 2.0 administration? Firstly, we have to understand the various economic implications of the Trump administration. Firstly, he has always advocated a method to have various tax cuts for the people of the US. If there are so many tax cuts in the US, people will be having more and more money to spend. If there is more spending, there will be more amount of inflation. And we understand if there is inflation, the interest rates will be higher. If the interest rates will be higher, we understand that there, it can actually indicate a stronger US dollar, right? And on the other side, the US has also advocated the recent administration, which is going to assume office, has advocated for stronger tariffs, against the various countries with which mainly the US has a huge amount of trade deficit. And also, when we talk about the various, say, aspects of China, right? So, be it deportation, be it, say, America First policy, these particular, say, strategies are aimed at China, to counter China, and also various American adversities in the present time. So firstly, we have seen the economic scenario. Secondly, we have to understand the action that Trump is going to take, or maybe is going to take, on various illegal immigrants. So the basic thing is clear that he will be deporting them in huge masses. Secondly, the wide-ranging tariffs on the US imports, specifically on countries such as China or other countries who are not in US's interest, right? They are going to face high amount of tariffs. Also, we understand the present president is not in terms or in sync with the green agenda of the country, because Joe Biden actually tried to increase the spending on various green finance, green projects in the country, but he is not going to follow that, according to various social media comments that we can see here itself, right? Also, he is keen on cutting down the government expenditure and leaving a lot of room for the private sector. We have seen the participation of Elon Musk directly in the election, right, through various amounts of funding. Also, we find that the president right now is saying that he will cut down the regulations. Over a period of time, the long-term aim is to cut down government spending and also headcount, that is, firing people from the government service. Also, because this is much more prudent with much more easier for the private sector to follow, right? Also, the same and at the very end, right, the US or say Trump is also expected to have or negotiate various political accommodation with Russia, China, Iran, and even North Korea. So it is quite unpredictable as of now as to what policies he is going to determine, and this will be actually be taken to re-establish the US power that is actually aligning with his America First policy. But when we talk about India's own aspect with US, we have to take some way forward, keeping in mind some of the challenges. Firstly, we have to keep in mind the Russia factor. India, over a period of time, has imported various consignments of ACE-400, which is an anti-missile system from the Russia, right? And also, when the Ukraine invasion took place, right, India and various other countries thought of adopting de-dollarization, which is an aspect of not using dollars for international transactions, or to lessen the use of using dollars to actually strengthen our own domestic economy. So it is to be seen how India is actually navigating the Russia factor with the US. Also, when it comes to immigration and visa policies, the governments must be negotiating and various aspects must be sorted out, because the H-1B and the various aspects of green card issues or green card delays faced by Indians in US, So those are the issues that we have to address. Be it the trade, IPR, digital taxation, or the GAFA tax in the country which we know as the equalization levy, right, which is actually a point which made Trump very angry back then. So these are the various aspects that we have to iron out with the US. When it comes to the various tariffs, we have to sort out the various tariffs and also the various, say, trade related surpluses that India is having with the US. India must be communicating the various reasons for the surpluses and also must be opening market access for the US goods in the country. Finally, when it comes to the cyber security and data sovereignty, the various US companies, right, private companies, these are not welcoming the initiatives of the Indian government on data privacies, right, and also the various laws and norms Indian government is coming up in the recent months. So it has to be seen in this particular aspect. And further, India must also be communicating to the US political dispensation regarding the various criticism and comments made by them on various India's internal activities. So with reference to 2018 PYQs, you let me know what is the answer of the same in the comments below. Also regarding the US and Indian relations, we have had questions from mains in 2021 and 2020. So it is for your own purview. For your practice, I've included a practice question, right? You try to solve this on your own, where in the introduction you can actually use the various data which is employed in this particular image. So now we'll be moving on to the next one. In the next article, this is all about for better health. That means that we have to strengthen India's digital health ecosystem, and this is generally to boost India's primary healthcare system and mainly via digital innovations. So this is highly important for prelims when we talk about economic and social development. For GS2 purposes, we have issues pertaining to health sector of our country. So let us get started with the vision for India at 2047, where we aim to become a Viksit Bharat, that is a developed country. And here we are believing in the development mantra of Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, right? And also Sabka Vishwas. And this also has to be combined with the greater aspect of Sabka Prayas. So this is actually the main theme that the author here is targeting here specifically for the health sector. Because we understand as an economy, as you know, the world's most populous country, we have to believe in the strength of our population, that is the demography. And according to Amartya Sen, in his capability approach, it is actually our own capabilities, that is our own aspect of developing our future careers, having more and more economic opportunity, having more and more opportunities to participate in health, to participate in educational sector, to, you know, over a period of time enhance our talents. So this is exactly why this article is focusing on the health aspect, because health is that important capability that we must be possessing to work and live efficiently. So this article is advocating an Indian health system which will be promoting well-being at the population level, that is at the grassroots level. So it will be also preventing diseases through public health interventions and also, you know, ensuring universal access to efficient, equitable, affordable diagnostics and therapeutic services. So be it any health question, we can actually use this as our introduction to our answer. Now when we talk about the topic here, when we start to talk about the topic, the author is advocating that the primary healthcare centers, which are the healthcare centers at the lowest levels of our health architecture, right? So they are actually the most important aspect when we talk about promoting health at the grassroots level, right? When we talk about the universal health coverage, which is actually a concept that all sections of the populations must be having access to health and various healthcare related aspects without caring or without actually worrying about financial burden. So the main amount of definition is that all individuals and communities must have equal access to health services without any financial hardship. This is actually also a major agenda of our sustainable developmental goals, right? But when we talk about the public healthcare centers, right, at the grassroots level, we find that the number of healthcare facilities, you know, is actually around 40,000 451, right? And also when we talk about the total public healthcare facilities in India, correct, so this is around 2 lakh. So these are actually the number of healthcare facilities which have been accessed or studied in a detailed report for various amounts of health related research. But when we talk about the, say, hierarchy, it is actually the sub healthcare center which is at the lowest level. Then we have the primary healthcare center, where we have so many aspects of, say, ailments, where 95% of India's ailments can be targeted at this level, right? And when we talk about, say, the score of assessed health facilities, be it, say, the number of doctors available, the number of beds available, the clinical diagnostic facilities. So this was a study which was done. It was found that only around 8,000 health facilities had a score of more than 80%. That is a cause of concern. So that is why in India, we must be trying to adopt the Thailand and Turkey model of, say, primary healthcare center, where in their country, they have totally dedicated the primary healthcare center for a public purpose. That is, it will be done by the government, right? So we have to follow this model. Also, the 15th Finance Commission has recommended various grants for the local, say, bodies to actually spend on boosting the primary healthcare sector of the country, right? So this is actually where we also find the role of the Ayushman Bharat mission. So now this Ayushman Bharat mission is actually employing the Ayushman Arogya Mandirs, which is actually a very important aspect of, say, the grassroots healthcare system in the country, where in this this entire scheme is a centrally sponsored scheme, where we have to understand the earlier name of the scheme was National Health Protection Scheme, right? And here the main purpose is to reduce the financial burden of the various poorest of the people here, where the main target is 12 crore people. 12 crore Indians will be targeted here, where these 12 crore people will be identified on the basis of, SECC 2011 socio-economic caste census. So this will be acting as a cornerstone identifying the beneficiaries. Also, the beneficiaries will be having the access to Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, which is actually an initiative of government health insurance of 5 lakh per family per year. And also recently there was an initiative, or there was a recent change here, where the senior citizens, where they were given further 5 lakh rupees, right, above this particular limit, right? And here around 10.74 poor and vulnerable families as per the SEC are eligible here. And also when we talk about the various, say, services here, this will be covering the secondary and tertiary care hospitalization charges, pre and post hospitalization charges here, and also surgeries, medical daycare, cost of medicines, and even diagnostics, right? And the particular services can be availed of throughout the country. When we talk about, say, another submission here, component of this particular mission here, we have the digital health mission, where we actually understand the key features is to have a digital ID in the form of a digital card with 14 number digit, so that whatever health care diagnostics tests we are doing, whatever doctor consultations we are having, whatever the hospitalization records we are having, so everything will be linked on one single platform. That is your National Digital Health Mission. So this will be actually done via a mobile app, will be recording your most important medical data, and this data will be linked to a registry of doctors and hospitals. Thus you can actually get your data in any hospital of the country, right? So this is actually where we have to understand the most important, say, Ayushman Bharat mission. But also there are various issues that India's primary healthcare at the grassroots level they are facing. Firstly, with the doctor-patient ratio, hospital bed patient ratio, out-of-pocket expenditures, also public health expenditure, we find that India is lagging with reference to all of this, whenever we have comparisons with developed countries and also developing countries such as China. So this is, you can pause the screen and you can actually look at all the data here. We are actually lagging in, say, most of the aspects here, because we are having some various key issues. Firstly, we have to understand that the burden of non-communicable diseases such as diabetes, such as cancer, such as other lifestyle related diseases are increasing at the lowest level. We understand that we are just according to data we have seen here, that 95% of the ailments can be targeted at the lowest level. So 95% of the non-communicable diseases burden is taking place there, but we are not able to cope up with it because of the low presence absence of doctors, hospital beds, and also the high amount of cost of hospitalizations over a period of time. And also when we talk about the emerging health threats, be it the zoonotic diseases as of now, such as the COVID, disease that we have seen, and also the various other aspects of, viral diseases, we see that this is rising over a period of time due to the non-compliance of our health system with One Health approach. That is, we have to take in, not only human health as a consideration, we have to also look into the various aspects of animal health and overall, ecosystem health. This is actually what we know as One Health approach. Also, when we talk about the spreading, case of antimicrobial resistance in the country right now, so this is also a menace at the ground level. This is where the poorer people are suffering the most, because the common medicines are not working anymore. Also, when we talk about the climate related aspects, because due to extreme weather events, right, we have so many huge instances of flooding, heat stress. This is also leading to higher amount of vector-borne diseases such as dengue, malaria, which are spreading right now. Also, when we talk about the local or the primary healthcare center, the data collection is very poor, because with reference to private hospitals, we understand that the records are maintained, everything is quite functioning efficiently. But when we talk about the government hospitals, the data on the various NCD burden, zoonotic diseases, AMR, and so many other things, that the data is not kept in a proper manner. With reference to various workforce issues, we have shortages of doctor, nurses, and also various other specialized people at the local level. So that is where we have to bring in a revolution in this particular aspect. Why? Digital health technology, where we have to integrate data systems, that we have to integrate the primary healthcare center with a better ambition under the Ayushman Bharat mission to have a better amount of system which is interlinked throughout the country. We have the Ayushman Bharat mission as of now, but the implementation of the same on the ground level is not proper, right? So according to various CAG reports also, we have seen so many errors, so many aspects of health records which are not compliant with the various norms. So that is where we have to have better amount of health systems. Also, be it the electronic health records, we have to maintain them digitally and in a safer place, also keeping into various data privacy concerns in mind. Also, we can employ various artificial intelligence, big data analytics to have better processing of the data to help us understand or help the policymakers understand where there are some areas in our country, for example, some districts which are more prone to dengue, which are more prone to diabetes. So we can actually have a better targeted approach later. We can also engage the community by spreading awareness, by increasing their participation in various health related activities. On the other side, we have actually to have better amount of healthcare professionals. We need to make them technologically enabled. We have to train them with reference to various skills, various amounts of mobile applications to better serve the population. And finally, we have to expand the allied health professionals, such as the diagnostic labs, such as the various care and wellness centers in the country. So we have to spread their outreach also. So this is what brings us to the end of the discussion. So we have discussed so many way forwards, and this is what we have to do to boost our healthcare center over a period of time. You let me know in the comments what is the answer of the 2022 PYQ, and also for your practice, you can practice this question after this discussion. In the next one, we are going to understand abatement of suicide and the recent Supreme Court observations on the same. Now, this article is important for our Indian polity and governance. So let us start off with the various background of the case. So we have to understand that according to a recent Supreme Court case, which is actually going on. So what happened here is that there was a person who committed suicide due to the alleged harassment of a bank manager who was forcing him to repay the loans, and due to various mental trauma and so on, according to the suicide notes and the various aspects of this case here, the police came to know that he was harassed by the accused bank manager to repay the loans. Right now, we understand that the police registered immediately a case against the bank manager under section 306 of the IPC. Now, once the investigation was completed, a trial court in Madhya Pradesh framed charges against the bank manager. Now, the bank manager challenged the order because according to him, his actions or his insistence, according to him, did not lead to suicide. So he approached the High Court in 2023, and the High Court allowed the trial to proceed. And here, because we have to understand, the High Court held that there was a prima facie, or on the face of it, that the deceased in the suicide note had clearly made allegations of harassments and so many things, right, on the pretext of, say, repayment of the loan. So here the High Court did not rule in the favor of the bank manager. So what he did, he went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court finally ordered a halt to the trial court proceedings. The Supreme Court told that we have to understand the issue of the bank manager too. We have to look into his side of the entire issue also. Supreme Court observed that hyperboles and informal exchanges without anything more should not actually be glorified as an instigation to commit suicide. So we have to go and look into the merits of the case. If at all the insistence of the bank manager did actually lead into the suicide, because we maybe do not have evidences properly, we do not have maybe investigations proper, right? So this is actually where we have to focus. So this brings us to this topic of abetment of suicide, that this is actually defined in the section 107 of the IPC, and right now in the section 45 of the BNS. So this actually means the act in which a particular person is forced to commit a suicide. So this can be via instigation, this can be via, say, a conspiracy by one or more than one or two people here, right? So it can be also be intentionally by any act or illegal omission. So this is actually how an abetment is actually defined here. But how to actually prove that abetment is the most important thing here. So one has to effectively show that the accused indirectly instigated or aided the deceased to die by suicide. So there must be a proper safeguard for the person, right? Otherwise everyone will be, say, alleging any other person for this particular matter, because we have to understand this is actually a cognizable offense, right, where arrest can be actually made without even an warrant. So this reflects the seriousness of the offense, right, where the punishment can be actually be stretched up to 10 years plus fine, right, according to Crime in India report by the NCRB, in which we find the conviction rate was actually very low when we talk about the overall conviction of various other offenses under IPC, that is 70%. So what is actually the standard for abetment of suicide? So Supreme Court, by various judgments, by various observations, has told that there must be a direct evidence here, that the direct and alarming encouragement, incitement must be recorded somewhere. Also in the M. Mohan versus the state 2011, right, the Supreme Court told that there must be a specific intent, where this requires an active or, say, a direct act which led to the deceased to commit suicide, seeing no option, and this act might have been intended to push the deceased into such position that he or she has committed suicide. Again, this was reaffirmed in the Uday Singh versus state of Haryana 2019 case. So this is what we have to keep in mind for our examination. In the next article, we are looking into the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code of 2016 and the various issues and solutions within the same. So here, let us first understand what is the difference between insolvency and bankruptcy. So imagine that I run an ice cream shop. In that ice cream shop, maybe I have taken a loan from a bank of 1 crore rupees, right? And with the same also I have various ice cream supplies. I have some of my employees who are working here. I may be buying an equipment to make the ice cream in my ice cream, say, shop. So this is actually how I set up a new business, by taking a loan and actually also maybe investing my own savings, maybe by buying a land, also by taking a rent, whatsoever it is. But maybe after 1 year or 2 years, I find that I do not have any profits in this particular business, right? I am not able to generate that amount of revenue that I envisaged when I actually thought of setting up this particular, say, investment. So what to do right now, because I'm not making any profit over 1 or 2 years, so I want to exit the business right now. But what is the issue here? Because we understand I have taken a loan here, I have actually employed a person here, maybe I'm taking raw materials from a supplier whom I have not yet paid. So these all are people to whom actually I owe some money or debt. So this is exactly what we mean by, say, insolvency and resolution processes. So firstly, insolvency actually is a state where I feel that I am not making business profits, right? I'm not in that financial capability to meet my debt to my bank, to my employees, and so on. But bankruptcy is that legal declarement by them. For example, tomorrow if I go to say a particular government authority and say that I am not able to run this business, please initiate a say legal process to recover the money and let me exit the business. Now this is a very good thing, because why? We understand that in the country, in India, in also rest of the world, we have the freedom to do economic activities, to carry out any professions, right? But we understand that in that particular say activity, we can face these issues of non-profitability and so on, due to which we have this insolvency and bankruptcy code, which is giving a legal option for the business entities to safely exit the business without creating so many issues. So in this aspect, we have two types of creditors. Firstly, we have the operational creditors, such as my employees, such as my raw material suppliers, right? On the other side, we have the financial creditors, the people such as banks, NBFCs. Even when we talk about buying a flat, buying a new apartment, we as homeowners give some advance money. Then also we are financial creditors. So these apply to individuals, partnerships, LLP and companies who are actually conducting various business opportunities but are facing losses and are say thinking of winding up the business. And this is actually, since its introduction, this particular code was actually helping India standing in the business world, because it can actually bring down the cost of doing business in the country and also increase the ease of doing business in the country. So how this is entirely say operating? For example, say in the same example of my ice cream shop here, what happened is that I thought of closing down the business. So what I do, I go to Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India. So I tell them my issue, they look into my issue, they immediately appoint some skilled chartered accountants or some people who are known as insolvency professionals. They are actually hired by insolvency professional agencies which are selected by the Insolvency Board, Insolvency Bankruptcy Board of India, which is actually a prime body which is looking into the overall implementation of IBC in the country. So after they have appointed the insolvency professionals, they will be looking into my business. They will be looking into if a new owner can be found, or if a new owner cannot be found, if someone is going to operate this over a period of time, and that someone can be me, by actually lowering the rate of interest by talking with my bank, or even talking with me to actually say pay the loan over a long period of time, right? So maybe the tenure of the loan can be improved or say increased over a period of time. If these things are not working, then the IPs can tell that, okay, let me liquidate or sell all of your assets. For example, it can sell my shop if I have bought it. It can sell all of my equipments. And what this particular say IPs will be doing with this money? This money will be given to all the creditors. Firstly, the money, say the order will be given, or say the importance will be given to the financial creditors, and later to all the rest of the creditors. So this is exactly how this is operating. And when they have say proposed or say looked into all this research and studies and so on, this particular project will be presented to the NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal. So where we have to understand, the National Company Law Tribunal is actually the agency where say me as an individual business owner, or say any other business owner, and also the financial creditors, they can actually look into the proceedings of this of my case here. So based on this, the appeal direction for individuals and partnerships is actually the Debt Recovery Tribunals. Say for example, if I'm not happy with the decision of the NCLT, I can appeal to the Debt Recovery Tribunal in the case if I'm an individual or a partnership, or in the case of companies, this is actually referred to the NCLAT, that is National Company Law Appellate Tribunal. So this is exactly how this is happening, and at the end, the decisions will be taken accordingly, along with the consent of the creditors and also the debtor, that is the business owners too. But there are many issues here. So actually when we talk about the NCLT, this was actually on the recommendation of RRD committee. But we have to understand the say architecture, the structure of the NCLT is actually reflecting a bygone era according to the editorial. And we have to understand this why, because there is a sanction strength of 63, which is actually far less. So the manpower is very less. The time, or say the multiple benches, are not able to effectively function with this less say amount of staff, which is creating a bottleneck. Also, the limited use of ADR, alternate dispute resolution, such as mediation, and the various ADR mechanisms, you let me know in the comments. So this actually facilitated, say, pre-judicial negotiation, pre-judicial solution. Before even moving into judiciary, we can actually sort out our issues by talking with ourselves, right? Talking between us. So we are also not adopting this. On the other side, we understand that according to the data given by the IBBI, the average time to sort out the issues is actually more than 1 year. This is actually much more than countries such as Singapore, where the resolution time is very less. So we understand the more the time, the more the banks will be facing financial issues because their money is stuck, the more the time the business owner will be stuck in that old business, right? So this is how we have to understand that delays are an issue. As we can understand, the delays are increasing over a period of time due to the number of cases which are increasing. Also, the settlement claims. For example, let me bring my ice cream, parlor example here. Maybe after, the insolvency professional plans and everything, my total due was around 1 crore. But the insolvency professionals and everything, right, they cannot even sell the same for 20 lakh. So this is what the figure is, that the actual claims and the realization claims are much lesser, right? And also we have to understand that over a period of time, the NCLT, NCLATs need to be sensitized of not exercising their judicial discretion in extending the timelines. They should not be extending the timeline. Also, the current mode appointment actually ignores the need for domain expertise, where we see high amount of bureaucratic dominance here too. So this is actually creating a paradox where an institution is tasked with resolving complex cases is actually hindered by lack of specialized knowledge such as financial knowledge, bankruptcy knowledge, and so on. And also we have to understand, as also noted by the Supreme Court earlier in various cases such as recently the Jet Airways case, so the staff of the registry is given wide powers to list or not list a particular matter, leaving enough room for even corruption, right? And also there is a growing tendency amongst the various, say, members of NCLT and NCLAT to ignore or defy the Supreme Court orders even. So this is what we have to keep in mind when we talk about the issues. What are the solutions that the author is giving us? Is firstly, we can actually propose a mandatory alternate dispute resolution, say that is a mediation before actually submission of the insolvency application to the NCLT, right? So this is one step we can add here. Also, we can have a hybrid model that actually brings in the judiciary too and the domain expert here, because we need amount of high amount of, say, specialized skills. Correct? So here we can actually create specialized benches for different category of cases. Also, infrastructure must not be an afterthought. That is, we must be having enough amount of courtrooms, enough amount of qualified people, permanent and administrative support staff to help it. And finally, we have to actually move beyond the mentality that we have to reduce our debt in this particular IBC. This is obviously about reducing the debt, but also about increasing India's ease of doing business and attracting higher investments, because the easier it is for the business person to wrap up the business, the more amount of further business that person is going to take up in the future. So this is what we have to keep in mind for this article. Now moving on to the next one. Now in this article, we are going to look into what do you mean by electoral trust. This is very important for our Indian polity and governance, and also for our suggestions in various answers with reference to salient features of Representation of People's Act. Electoral trusts will be giving you a good age. Now, what are electoral trusts? These are actually based from the Electoral Trust scheme of 2013. So what happens is that there are various companies, there are various individuals who want to contribute to a particular political party. So instead of individually giving to the political parties various donations, there can be a particular institution where all of the entities, be it companies, individuals, and the various other people who are eligible, as I am going to show you, they will be depositing money in this particular trust. Now, out of this, the trust will be giving 95% of the contributions to the political parties, and the 5% will be kept by them as an expenditure for day-to-day operation of this particular trust. Now, who are eligible to set up the trusts? Any companies registered under Companies Act 1956. They will be set up by the companies, and every electoral trust, their approvals, or their particular licenses, they must be renewed every 3 financial years, and they are also having scrutiny under Income Tax Act of 1961. So the main idea is to pool in the contributions, and also, as you can see here, these are actually some of the leading electoral trusts in the country, such as Prudent, such as Progressive, Janhit, Parivartan, Trump. In no ways, as you can see, the particular trust will be reflecting the name of the companies. And here, when we talk about the contributions, they can be from any citizen of the country, company registered in India, others such as Hindu Undivided Family, association of persons, or a body of individuals resident in India. And the distribution of donation is that 95%, as we have talked about, has to be distributed to political parties under RPA 1951. Where this particular trust should be maintaining all the details such as accounts, receipts, and also there is an audit provision where the various amount of donations, they will be going audits by respective authority, and also the Election Commission of India needs to be affirmed or say informed of the various reports by the individual electoral trust. When we talk about the difference between electoral bonds and the trust, you let me know what is the status of the bonds, electoral bonds in the country in the comment section. But when we talk about bonds, we obviously mean that the bonds are issued by the banks when we talk about electoral bonds. But electoral trusts are actually with reference to the pooled donations by firm registered under the Companies Act. And also when we talk about disclosure or say the political donations and whether we can release the information or not, so that the disclosure is required in the electoral trust. But we have to understand transparency is limited when it comes to multiple donors and recipients. But when we talk about transparency in electoral bonds, they are not at all transparent, right? And also when we talk about the donor and recipient, right, they can be identified in the case of only one contributor and beneficiary of a trust. But in the other case, we have to understand here that the parties inform the Election Commission of aggregate contributions but not the donors, right? And also when we talk about the total amount of contributions recently, so this is something which we have to keep in mind, because we know that the electoral bond scheme was struck down as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. Now the political parties are getting donation more by the electoral trusts, and as we have already seen, this is a Prudent electoral trust which is actually run by a particular company, right? So the contribution from 2023-24 financial year is actually 1075 crore around, right? And also, and when we have talked right now that many other companies can also contribute, we see that the contributions are increasing over a period of time. But at least in this electoral trust, we know who are the donators. So this is what is important for this article. In the next article, we will be looking into the mechanisms of how TRI is actually combating the spams. And here when we talk about spams, these are promotional materials which are in the form of SMSs or callings by various private organizations, right? But when we talk about scams, these are not at all say friendly or from any legitimate organization. These are generally with reference to intentions of theft, fraud, say seeking personal information or money and so on. So here we are talking about preventing spam. So here what happened is that the TRI, the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, has actually framed various norms to maintain its role in combating something which we know as unsolicited commercial communications, or spam as we know it, right? Which is actually the official name of spam. So in 2007, the TRI implemented a do not disturb registry, which was a registry where we have to understand that telemarketers have to abide by customer preferences when it came to various commercial calling. We get so many calls and we get so much disturbed. So this will be actually be the registry where we have to understand if a telecom customer signs up to the registry of do not disturb, they are not supposed to get any spam or SMS. And here TRI has also worked with various external agencies to develop an app here, and also with various operators such as Jio, as we can see here, where we can understand in 2024 TRI mandated that D&D reporting must be available on every telecom provider's app. So this is how TRI is collaborating with agencies. It is having its own registry to reduce the spams, but it is right now employing a various innovative approach in say reducing spam. This is via blockchain technology. When we talk about blockchain technology or the distributed ledger technology, this is how we can keep our data secure in the entire blockchain. Now when we talk about blockchain, we can actually imagine a block, Now this block is nothing but maybe a data of our place of birth, name, or maybe even transactions. Now when we talk about this particular block of data, this data or say block must be present in a particular chain of various computers, and if at all, if any time this particular block is present in that chain, every computer, every user will be able to access the data there. And if at all we are going to change some of the information in this block, we need the permission of all the users of all the computers in the blockchain. This is a simplified explanation, a quick explanation of how blockchain works. So with reference to any modifications, with reference to any data that needs to be changed or need to be added or deleted, we need the permission of the entire ecosystem of blockchain. So this is how we can understand if we involve the distributed ledger technology in the anti-spam efforts, this can enhance our immutability, traceability and transparency. That is, we can understand this means that the data is unique. For example, say if we talk about any phone number, if we talk about any say name of a particular company who are doing spam calls, we can actually identify from the blockchain directly. We can also trace from where the particular call is coming from, and obviously it is very transparent. So let us understand how it is happening here. So the first we have to understand are the steps which are involved. Firstly, registration of telemarketers and entities are done on this particular blockchain. Then we have to understand that the TRI will be using a particular format of various message templates. For example, we have various OTP messages for which the template is that your OTP is dash dash dash. Or for example, we have so many other advertisements from various telemarketers. So those templates must be defined first. Then these particular SMSs can only be sent by the sender IDs. For example, if Wipro is sending me some message, it has to be from the Wipro's sender ID with TRI, not Wipro's phone number. So phone number will be eliminated in this technology. So blockchain's role is to validify the phone number and the messages and has to filter out the various spam messages here. Also here, the consent-based messaging is obviously enforced in this particular aspect. As we can see here, if you give your consent, you will not be receiving the spams. So that spams will be removing over a period of time. So in this will be leading into filtering and blocking. And finally, if at all there are some aspects here that will be subjected to regulatory and say legal enforcement aspects. So this is what this entire thing is all about. And in the comment section, you let me know what is the answer to this 2020 PYQ. Also, when we talk about more aspects here, what are some other measures which have been taken is that we understand that the wave of digitization has increased the incentives for the miscreants to get over these legal aspects also, right? The technology is developing over a period of time, right? So that is why many of these operations are right now down outside the purview of SMS and say sender IDs. They're right now done by disposable 10-digit phone numbers, even by international say phone numbers sometimes, as we all sometimes receive calls from US, UAE and so on. Like, I feel I'm so important, I'm so famous, someone is calling me from the US, but at the end of the day, someone is spamming me, right? So this is how these things are happening. But the Department of Telecommunications has actually launched the Sanchar Sathi portal, which is having a reporting site called Chakshu. So this is how we have understood that there are some other initiatives too. Also, the particular DOT has partnered with law enforcement, banks and other stakeholders to have suspected fraudulent calls and messages. Also, it has set up the Telecom Security Operational Center at Delhi, and also various private firms such as Airtel is using artificial intelligence to combat the spams here. So let us move on to the final article. Finally, we have come to the last article where we have to look into the case study of Kenyan lake, where water hyacinth, as we can see here, has occupied the entire lake. This is an aspect of invasive alien species, which is also something which they do, something which we know as biological invasion. These are perpetuated by animals, plants, fungi and even microorganisms, where they are introduced in any natural ecosystem where they were not part of earlier. So they can be introduced by a natural natural process or human intervention due to which they become disruptors in food chain. They reproduce, they multiply, they fight for food resources, due to which the supply of natural food resources for native species they decline. They get replaced by alien species, and gradually when they reproduce, they become a colony. And that is why we can understand this is how the water hyacinth colony spread in this particular lake, right? When we talk about areas which are more prone to this invasive alien species, these are sometimes human induced disturbances, because various forests and other aspects, this leaves little space for competition and more space for expansion by the invasive species. Also islands which are not very prone to competition, so these are also prone to various ecological niches where the invasive alien species thrive, because they have more amounts of, say, competition for food and nutrition. And when we talk about some of the examples you can look at here, but when we talk about this particular, say, case here, so this is actually in the lake Naivasha, which is located in, say, the southwestern part of Kenya. So for our mapping portion, it is important that Kenya is surrounded by Ethiopia, Sudan, Uganda, Tanzania and Somalia. And also we have to talk about, say, the particular case here, that the particular growth of excessive water hyacinth is blocking sunlight and impacting airflow. It is also stranding the fishermen at this particular lake here, and this has led to the drastic fall in the population of fish and is threatening the livelihoods of the farmer here. But is it all about the issue here? No. There is a particular startup known as HiPack. So this HiPack is converting the water hyacinth into biodegradable packing here. So it is actually employing the various fisher people to collect the water hyacinth, and it is trying to process it into packaging material. So this is actually one of the innovative ways in which we can manage them. So what are the various initiatives for the management of the, invasive alien species? We have the Convention on Biological Diversity. We have the Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, where we have a target of reducing the population of invasive alien species by 50% by 2030. We also have the IUCN Invasive Species Specialist Group, the Convention on Migratory Species of Wild Animals, the CMS, which is having stringent norms on, say, the transboundary movements of living species. And finally, our own Wildlife Protection Amendment Act of 2022, which is for the very first time having the provision of alien invasive species and how to manage them. According to the same, we have a slightly related PYQ from 2015. For your revision, you let me know in the comments below. So with this, I thank you all for being a very patient audience. This was a long discussion, so thank you a lot. Please do attempt the quiz which is following up, and also till we meet again, all the best and best of luck. Thank you.